Hello everyone, I am Chandrasekhar Eragani, and in this series of videos I would be quickly revising all the 21 chapters, that is 174 sections and 3 schedules of CGST Act 2017. Let me once again reiterate that this is only a rapid revision series, therefore you would be seeing the gist of the sections and some important words on the screen. So please focus on the explanation more to understand the content, and I would be attaching this Excel in the video which can be downloaded. Chapter 1 is preliminary, Chapter 2 administration, Chapter 3 levy and collection of tax, Chapter 4 time and value of supply, Chapter 5 input tax credit, Chapter 6 registration, Chapter 7 tax invoice credit and debit notes, Chapter 8 accounts and records, Chapter 9 returns, and Chapter 10 payment. So if you go to sections in detail, section 1, which is of preliminary, chapter 1 talks about short title extent and commencement. This act is called CGST Act 2017 and it extends to whole of India, and it comes into force into on such date as the central government may notify, and different dates have been provided for different provisions. And section 2 talks about definitions. There are multiple definitions and I have taken only the important definitions in my view. Aggregate turnover, it means taxable plus exempt plus exports plus interstate same pan, and it excludes the GST. Business means any trade, commerce, manufacture, profession, vacation, adventure, wager, any similar or any other activity or transaction which is incidental or ancillary in nature. Any provision by club, association, society, or any such body, facilities or benefits to members is also considered as business. Admission to any premises for a consideration is considered as business, and activities of a race club, activity by government is also considered as business. Casual taxable person means a person who occasionally undertakes supply of goods or services for business purposes. Composite supply means two or more taxable supplies naturally bundled, supplied in conjunction, and one is a principal supply. So four important parameters are there for a composite supply: two or more taxable supplies, naturally bundled, supplied in conjunction, one is principal supply. Consideration will not include any subsidy given by central government or state government, and it will not include deposit unless the supplier applies such deposit as consideration. Continuous supply of services means service supply of services more than 3 months with periodic payment obligations. Conveyance will always include vessel, aircraft, vehicle, these three things. Electronic commerce operator means a person who owns, operates or manages digital or electronic facility or platform. Exempt supply means nil rate or wholly exempt and includes non-taxable supply. Fixed establishment means sufficient degree of permanence should be there, and suitable structure in terms of human and technical form should be there. Goods means every kind of movable property, and it includes actionable claim, growing crops, and things attached to land to be severed. Excludes money and securities. So goods includes only movable property and it clearly excludes money and securities. Inputs means any goods other than capital goods is considered as inputs. Input services means any services for business purposes is considered as input services. Job work, any treatment or process on goods belonging to another registered person is considered as job work. Location of recipient of service or location of supplier of service means you have to first look at the registered place, and if that person doesn't have the registered place of business, then you have to look at other fixed establishment. And if there are more than one fixed establishment which is directly connected to the transaction, can be considered as location. If that person does not have any registered place, or if he does not have any fixed establishment, then you have to look at usual residence as location. Market value means full amount required to pay at or about same time and same commercial level, and parties are not related. Mixed supply means two or more individual supplies, should be for a single price, and should be made in conjunction, and it should not be a composite supply. Non-resident taxable person means a person who occasionally undertakes transactions but he has no fixed place of business or residence in India. Non-taxable supply means it is not leviable to tax under CGST or IGST. Place of business means business ordinarily carried on and includes a warehouse, a godown, or any other place where goods are stored, or supplies or receives goods or services, or maintains his books of account, or places where engaged in business through agent. Principal supply means the predominant element in a supply and other is ancillary. Recipient means a person liable to pay, and in case where there is no consideration to whom the goods are delivered or to whom the service is rendered is considered as a recipient. Services means anything other than goods, money and securities. Work contract means the contract for immovable property wherein the transfer of property and goods is involved in the execution. So there should be, the contract is for immovable property and there should be some transfer of property and goods involved in execution of the contract. Then only it can be called as work contract. Moving on to chapter 2, administration. Section 3 talks about officers under this act. Principal Chief Commissioner, Principal Commissioner, Commissioner, Additional Commissioner, Joint Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner and Assistant Commissioner are considered as officers under this act. And it has been provided that officers under Central Excise Act shall also be deemed to be officers under CGST Act. Section 4, appointment of officers. Board may appoint additional officers. So board may, by order, it can authorize officers till Assistant Commissioner to appoint officers below Assistant Commissioner. Section 5, powers of officers. Central Tax Officer exercise the powers and discharge the duties conferred under this act. He may exercise the powers and discharge duties of officer who is subordinate to him, and Commissioner may delegate his powers to subordinate. Appellate authority shall not exercise the powers and discharge the duties of any other officer. Section 6, organization of officers of state tax or UT as proper officer in certain circumstances. Officers under SGST or UTGST are authorized to be proper officers, and proper officer, if a notice is issued under this act, he shall also issue notice under SGST or UTGST under intimation to jurisdictional officer of state tax. A proper officer initiated any proceeding under SGST or UTGST, there is no proceeding on the same subject. The proceeding for rectification, appeal and revision of order passed under this act shall not lie before state tax. Moving on to chapter 3, levy and collection of tax. Section 7, scope of supply. Supply includes all forms of supply: sale, exchange, lease, license, transfer, barter, rental, disposal, and it should be for consideration, and it should be by a person, and it should be for business purposes in the course of furtherance of business. And the supply includes import of services as well, and it also includes activity under Schedule 1 cases where there is no consideration as well. 7.1a, where certain transactions constitute a supply as per section 7.1, then we have to refer Schedule 2 for classification of goods or services. Only if it is a supply as per section 7.1, then you have to refer Schedule 2. Just because it is there in the Schedule 2, it doesn't mean that it will automatically become a supply. Section 7 subsection 2, activities under Schedule 3 or government are neither supply of goods nor services. Section 7 subsection 3, government may specify the transactions to be treated as supply of goods or services. They have that power. Section 8, tax liability on composite and mixed supplies. Composite supply, supply of principal supply is considered for tax liability, and in case of mixed supply, the supply which attracts higher rate will be considered for determining the tax liability. Section 9 talks about levy and collection. Section 9 subsection 1, CGST on all intrastate supplies, and it excludes alcoholic liquor. Value will be determined as per section 15 and rate should not exceed 20%. Similarly for SGST another 20%. So total 40% is the maximum cap under GST. Section 9 subsection 2 says petroleum products will be effective from date to be notified: crude, petrol, diesel, ATF, natural gas, etc. And government specify RCM cases where all provisions will be applicable on the recipient. So they will notify these cases, and it will be the liability of the recipient to pay the taxes and to comply with the GST law. Section 9 subsection 4, unregistered to registered, government will notify certain class of persons for RCM, and all provisions will again apply on them. This is between when unregistered person applies to registered person. Section 9 subsection 5 talks about specified category of services under electronic commerce operator. Then all provisions will be applicable on ECO, provided that if ECO does not have any physical presence, he has to representative should be there and he should be liable. And if there is no representative, then he shall appoint a person as his representative. Moving on to section 10, composition levy. If the aggregate turnover in the preceding financial year is less than or equal to 1.5 crores, then you may opt for a composition rate. For manufacturer, it should not exceed 1%, and for restaurant services, it should not exceed 2.5%, and for others, it should not exceed 0.5%. So these are the rates prescribed under CGST, and therefore SGST will also have similar rates. And provided that if a person opts to pay tax under composition scheme, then he may supply services as well, and the value should not exceed 10% of turnover in the preceding financial year again, or 5 lakhs, whichever is higher. So section 10 subsection 2 talks about the conditions when you are eligible for composition levy. You are eligible only if you are not engaged in supply of services except mentioned above. If you are not engaged in non-taxable goods or services, if you are not engaged in interstate supply of goods or services, if you are not engaged in supply through electronic commerce operator required to collect TCS, if you are not engaged in manufacture of notified goods, and if you are not engaged as a casual taxable person nor NRTP, non-resident taxable person, and if you have more than one registration under same pen, you should opt for composition for all the registration, then only you can proceed. Section 2A talks about cases where if you are not eligible to opt composition under subsection 10(1) or 10(2), then you can opt under section 10(2)A, where your aggregate turnover is less than or equal to 50 lakhs in the preceding financial year, and you may opt to pay rate not exceeding 3% under composition. And the conditions are almost similar, again what we have referred in 10 subsection 2. And if any case your aggregate turnover exceeds in particular year, and the option of composition will lapse with effective from that date, and you should not collect any taxes if you are a composition taxpayer, or you should not take any input tax credit as well if you are a composition taxpayer. And you are not eligible under composition, but still if you are paid under composition, then you will be liable for proceedings under section 73 or 74 penalty cases. And section 11, power to grant exemption from tax. Government by notification they can exempt generally or whole or any part of tax leviable. Similarly, by special order also under certain circumstances of exceptional nature they can do that. By notification within 1 year they can insert an explanation effective from the date of notification. So these are the powers to grant exemption from tax. Moving on to chapter 4, time and value of supply. Section 12 talks about time of supply of goods, whereas section 13 deals with time of supply of services. 12.1 says that time of supply of goods will be dealt as per this section. 12.2 says the time of supply of goods will be the date of issue of invoice, or last date required to raise an invoice, or the date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. And if supplier receives up to 1000 rupees in excess than invoice, then supplier can choose the time of supply as date of issue of invoice. For RCM cases, we have to look at three things: date of receipt of goods, date of receipt of payment, and date immediately following 30 days from the date of issue of invoice. So whichever is earlier will be time of supply of goods in RCM cases. And if it is not possible to determine under these A, B, C of 12 subsection 3, then the date of entry in the books of recipient will be considered as time of supply of goods. 12 subsection 4 talks about vouchers. If supply is identifiable at the time of issue of voucher, then the date of issue of voucher will be considered as time of supply of goods. If it is not determinable, then the date of redemption in all other cases will be considered as time of supply. If it is not possible to determine time of supply of goods under 12 subsection 2, 12 subsection 3, 12 subsection 4, and then periodical return will be considered as time of supply of goods. The date on which such return has to be filed will be considered as time of supply of goods. In any other case, the date on which the tax is paid will be considered as time of supply of goods. 12 subsection 6 talks about case where if there is any addition in the value by way of interest, late fee or penalty for delayed payments, then the date on which the supplier receives such additional money will be considered as time of supply of goods. Section 13 talks about time of supply of services. 13.1 time of supply of services as per this section. 13.2 says if the invoice is issued within the time, then the date of issue of invoice or date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier, will be considered as time of supply of service. If the invoice is not issued within time, then the date of provision of service or date of receipt of payment will be considered as time of supply of service. And the date on which the recipient shows the receipt of services in his books of account will be also looked into, and if it is earlier, then that will be considered as time of supply of service. Again, same, the provided that if the supplier receives up to 1000 rupees in excess, then the option to choose time of supply as date of issue of invoice. For RCM of services, you have to look at only two things: the date of visit of payment and the date immediately following 60 days from the date of issue of invoice. There it is 30 days for goods, now it is 60 days, and there is no date of visit of goods here as the third parameter. So since it is a service, we have to only look at these two things, and earlier will become a date of time of supply for services in RCM case. And if it is not possible to determine RCM time of supply under AB, then the date of entry in the books of recipient has to be looked into. And in case of associated enterprises, if the supplier is outside India and the time of supply will be the date of entry in the recipient books or date of payment, whichever is earlier. If it is again pertaining to vouchers, same as section 12 subsection 4, if supply is identifiable, then the date of issue of vouchers. If supply is not identifiable, then the date of redemption will be considered as time of supply of services. Section 13 subsection 5, not possible under 2, 3, 4, then periodical return will be considered as time of supply of services. In any other case, the date on which the tax is paid will be considered as time of supply of services. Section 13 subsection 6 is similar to 12 subsection 6 in that if there is any addition in the value by way of interest, late fee or penalty for delayed payment, then the date on which the supplier receives such addition will be considered as time of supply of services. Moving on to section 14, when there is a change in rate of tax in respect of supply of goods or services, you have to look at three parameters. Number 1, supply. Number 2, invoice. Number 3, payment. Out of these three parameters, if any two things are happening either before change in rate of tax or after change in rate of tax, then the majority has to be looked into. And if the majority is on one side, then you have to look at which of the three parameters are part of that majority. If supply and invoice or payment is falling, then we will ignore supply, and the date of invoice or date of payment will be considered as time of supply. If the tie is between the invoice and payment, then whichever is earlier will be considered as time of supply of goods or services. For example, if I take scenario 3 where supply has happened before the change in rate of tax and invoice is after change in rate of tax, but payment is before change in rate of tax. So therefore the majority of parameters have happened before change in rate of tax, that is supply is before as well as payment is before. So the tie is between supply and payment. So which date I have to consider? I will ignore supply and I will only consider payment. So the time of supply is payment. If you take the first instance where supply is before change in rate of tax, invoice is after change in rate of tax and payment is after change in rate of tax, So here the majority of the parameters is after, which is invoice and payment. And whenever invoice and payments comes into the picture, we will take whichever is earlier. So whichever is earlier will be time of supply of goods or services. Section 15, again another important section, value of taxable supply. So value is very important to apply the tax rate and then pay the taxes. So in GST it is always transaction value, provided the parties are not related and price is the sole consideration. And there are some things which you have to include as a part of value. And 15.3 talks about cases where you can what are the things you can exclude from the value. So value shall include any taxes, duties, cesses, fees and charges levied other than this act. Section 15 is another important section of the whole GST law, which talks about value of taxable supply. So in GST, the value will be always transaction value only if the parties are not related and price is the sole consideration. In case if the parties are related and price is not the sole consideration, then we have to look at valuation rules as per section 15 subsection 4. And value will always include all the taxes, duties, cesses, fees and charges levied other than this act. And supplier is liable to pay but it is incurred by the recipient, then that should form part of value. Incidental expenses like commission and packing, so that will also be part of value. If there is any interest, late fee or penalty specifically for deferred payment or delayed payment, that has to be included in the value. Subsidies linked to price will also be forming part of value, but if the subsidy is given by central government or state government, then it should not form part of value. Value shall not include any discount. So if there is any price which is there, from that price you can exclude discounts or you can deduct discounts, provided the discounts are given before the time of supply or at the time of supply. And if the discount is given after the supply, such discount has to be pre-agreed and it has to be linked to the relevant invoices, and the input tax credit should be reversed by the recipient. Only in that case the discount will be excluded from the value, otherwise it will be forming part of value. 15.5 talks about notified supplies where value will be determined as prescribed. So government will determine what is the value which you have to consider for paying the taxes, and you have to pay the taxes only on that value irrespective of transaction value. So this is for only notified supplies.